I've got the Headrush Flex Prime on the bench again today. On this video, I want to take you step by step through their free amp cloner tutorial to make a clone and then some super clones of a hardware amplifier. The amp that I'm using is this, the Soldano Astro 20. It's a 20 watt all tube amplifier with 4 distinct voicing modes. I really like the gain sounds on this, whether it's the crunchy sounds from the blue mode, the driven lead sounds of the purple mode, or the over-the-top chungus of the red mode. What we're going to do is make a clone of the purple mode first with the free amp cloner software. And then I'm going to make clones of the other channels and show you how you can turn that into a unique super clone, which will morph between all 3 sounds. The Astro 20 is also super convenient because while you can run it into a conventional guitar cabinet, it features a power amp simulator and IR loader, so you can just take an XLR out of this straight into your audio interface and get a great recorded tone, which I'm going to do here. I'm also using one other piece of gear that's critical, a reamp box, which is going to take me from my audio interface into the amplifier. This is a Little Labs Red Eye, which is a fantastic unit I've been using for a long time, but there's lots of great options at any budget. Let's go. To get started, open up the Amp Cloner software and navigate to the Cloner tab. We'll hit Let's Get Started, and then we'll decide what type of hardware we're trying to clone, whether it's hardware or software. In this case, it's hardware, and because I've got the sound of a speaker cabinet and microphone baked in, I'm going to select Stack/Combo. If you were capturing an amp with a load box or a preamp, you'd use the amp only selection. If you were capturing something like a distortion pedal, select pedal. I am, of course, playing guitar, so I'm going to hit guitar. Next, this is the critical stage where we are going to tell the amp cloner where all the relevant signals are coming from. So up in the top right, we want to select where our guitar signal is coming in. I'm plugged into input 2 of my audio interface, which is a Universal Audio Apollo X8. So I've selected the relevant input over here. I've set the output and input device as my UA interface, and then I'm using the monitor outputs over here. Next, we need to send signal to the amplifier that we're trying to capture, and this is where you will need a reamp box. So I'm coming out of line output number 5 into my reamp box. That's flowing into my amplifier. Then I'm taking the signal back to my audio interface. So this is mic preamp number 3 over here. What I can do now is I can test the levels, and we want to aim to tickle around -6 on both the instrument in and on the target input over here. So if you're not getting enough signal on the instrument in, you want to adjust the gain on your audio interface. If you're not getting enough input from your target, you either want to turn up your amp or turn up your mic preamp. Let's test this really quickly. They are both around that -6 mark, which we want. One last little note, I found that setting the output to 0 dB here and then adjusting the gain on my reamp box works best for me. You can play around with this one, and the best way to test this is to test by plugging your guitar straight into your rig, having a listen for the gain levels, and then comparing it to the reamped signal over there. Once you've done all of that, we can hit next, and this is where we can actually match up the clone EQ controls with the real amp EQ controls, if that's something that you want to do. On here, I've got the bass and treble of my amp slightly higher than 50 and the mid slightly lower, so I'll go around 60% and 40%. From here, we can hit Start Clone and the process will begin. It takes about 2 minutes. From there, you can hit next. This is where you can come in and refine the clone by adjusting the gain, EQ controls, and these chug and sag parameters to match the target amp. My very quick shortcut is to set the chug and the sag somewhere between about 15 and 25% to get going. I find those generally feel pretty well, and they tend to match the modeled amp really well. Next, we can go in and assign a skin to the amp. I'll just choose this top left one over here. And finally, we can name the clone and enter metadata about the captured amp, cabinet, or pedal. This is a Soldano Astro on the purple mode, so I'm just going to call it LT Astro Purple. I'm actually going to capture the blue channel as well as the red channel of this amp, and then we will turn it into a super clone. Once you're happy with that, you can load your clones up into the Amp Cloner player. I can select between the clones that I've made as well as a bunch of the factory clones in here as well. And you can see I've got a bunch of different amps that I've cloned. I've put these up in the cloud if you want to try them for yourself. But for example, I could start with this LT Astro Purple that we tried. I've got the option of using the captured cabinet in there, or I have the ability to kind of decab the capture that I've taken and either load up one of the internal cabinet simulations or to load up a different third-party IR, which is pretty awesome. I'll give you a quick little demo of the Purple Astro capture in here. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I actually made clones of the red and the purple mode as well. So I could turn those 3 channels that I've captured on the Astro into a Superclone, which will let me morph seamlessly between them and not in a discrete way, just going 1, 2, 3 like a channel switching amp. We can go all the shades in between, say, the blue and the purple mode or the purple and the red mode on there. So if I go up to Superclone and hit Let's Get Started, what I want to do is select my stacks and combos, and then I want to start with my lowest gain clone. So we'll add the Astro Blue, then we'll add the Astro Purple and the Astro Red in there. I can hit Next, and then I have the choice to apply volume control to the Superclone gain, which I actually don't want to do. I captured all 3 of those clones with those recommended settings, so the volume should be pretty consistent between all of them. We just hit Next, we select a skin and give it a name, and then we're able to not just load it in the player, but transfer it into our Headrush Prime units and build rigs with them. Now, once that's done, I have the choice to load it up into the Amp Cloner software, or I can export it. So I can go over to the browser and I can use this little icon over here and save it onto my computer, then transfer it over to my Headrush unit and play the Superclone. Let's do that and then build a rig out of this Superclone. With your Headrush unit in USB transfer mode, it will show up as an external drive on your computer and you can simply drag and drop your clones and Superclones. So let's click on the Superclones folder over here. We'll go to User, then I'll come over to the folder on my computer where I've got my Superclones. Let's take this Astro Superclone and simply drag it and drop it into the user section over here. Then on my unit, I eject it and then hit sync. I've got this Les Paul Custom plugged straight into the Headrush Flex Prime. I'm coming out in stereo to my audio interface, and I'm using the web-based editor here. Let's start by adding a Superclone. So we'll go to Clone, I'll come over to Superclone, and then I'll load the Superclone from my user banks that I've imported. Let's select the LT Astro SC. Now, the Superclone gain control is going to be controlling that morph between the different elements of the Superclone. So at 0, it will be that Astro Blue mode. At 100, it will be the red mode. 50 will be the purple mode. But then in between there, we're getting a unique blend that doesn't exist on the amplifier. So let's start at the extremes and then just have a listen to what we've got. And you can see I've also got the option to turn the cab that I captured this with on or off and load up a different cab. I'm going to leave that on, but I'm going to use a very cool feature that you can do in here with the built-in expression pedal, where we're going to assign the expression pedal to the gain control over here. So I'm essentially going to be able to morph between those three channels that I've created the Superclone out of with the expression pedal. I could go even further, and with the expression pedal all the way down, I could have the delay mix lower, but I could have it higher as the expression pedal goes up, sort of like an auto lead boost and lead delay. Let's just start with one. We will go up to the assign over here, and we are going to go to the advanced mode of the expression pedal here. Let's hit plus, and I'm going to come down to Superclone and select the gain control. I can then set the limits here. So I'm just going to do 0 to 100 to start with. With the expression pedal all the way down, I'm going to have that blue crunch mode. With it all the way forward, again, it's going to be the full-on mode, and then I've got those unique blends in between. And just to finish things off with this very simple but powerful rig, we'll go to the assign and we will add one more parameter. I'm going to add the dynamic delay mix here, and we'll set the minimum over here to 0, so it's dry when I'm on that lowest gain mode, and the maximum maybe to around 40. So it's wet, but not too wet. Let's have a listen to what this does now. Now, of course, you've got a whole plethora of other effects to add to that rig. You can run multiple clones or super clones in a single preset. The sky is the limit with what you want to do for this, but hopefully that example shows you how using a very small number of elements can result in a very expressive and flexible guitar tone on here. I'll put those clones and the super clone that I made on the Headrush cloud if you'd like to try it. If you've got any requests for future videos, let me know in the comments section below. Otherwise, I will see you all on the next one.